All right, hello JCs. Welcome to JCI Greater Muskegon's JCI Passport to Civic Leadership and Project Management Guide virtual training. For this presentation, we are going to start this presentation off with introductions, and we're going to break it down into two parts. The first part is going to be JCI Passport to Civic Leadership, the purpose and importance of JCI Passport to Civic Leadership, how to engage in JCI Passport to Civic Leadership, and then Q&A. When we get to the Q&A portion, I just suggest that you take the time to reflect on the presentation and develop some questions that you might have to put into the survey for afterwards. Part two is our project management guides. We're going to go over the purpose and importance of project management guides, how to implement project management guides, and we'll also have another Q&A portion, and again, to implement those questions of the survey that we'll be taking at the end of the presentation. All right, so my name is Danielle Conley. I am the individual VP for JCI Greater Muskegon. I am going to present to you Kirsten Ebey. She's the director for individual of JCI Greater Muskegon, and she will be going over all of the JCI Passport to Civic Leadership and how you can engage in that with the JCs. And then after that, Jamie Hekker. She's our senator's number 78671. She's with JCI Greater Muskegon, as well as JCI Kalamazoo and part of the JCI Michigan State Board. She'll be going over all of the project management guide portion of the training, and I think she has a lot of really great information that everyone will benefit from. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Kirsten to get started on our Passport to Civic Leadership.
Awesome. Thank you, Danielle. Hi, everybody. So we are going to go over JCI Passport to Civic Leadership. Maybe a lot of you have heard about degrees or earning different degrees within this program. So there are 10 degrees within the JCI Passport to Civic Leadership. And maybe a lot of people don't know exactly what it is. So let's go over, what is JCI Passport to Civic Leadership and why is it important? First of all, it serves as a tool to activate. So the 10 degrees are a framework that activates the JC members within the chapter, okay? Also, it promotes community involvement. So as you complete each of the degrees, you are being guided through, as a JC, community involvement and basically creating some positivity or positive impact action within the community. Lastly, professional development. That's part of our purpose as JCs, right? So we are providing professional opportunities for each of our JC members through multiple avenues, and this is a great way, the Passport to Civic Leadership, to get that done. So how do we actually get to this passport? There is a website. You may or may not be familiar with it. So jcmember.com/login. That will bring you to your dashboard where you can choose to click on View Passport, see all 10 degrees, and then once you're checking the individual degrees, it will go through an approval process. So what does that actually look like? Check it out. Here is that page where we log in, the jcmember.com login. Here's my email address, here's my password, and then click login, right? Pretty self-explanatory. Once you log in, you're going to be brought to your dashboard. There's a lot of cool stuff here, right? What's your chapter information? No problem, located on the right. Here's our amazing president, Kira. Her information is right there. Also, when do we meet? Renewal information, we have profile information along the left-hand side, And what we're really looking for right now in this specific training is the Passport to Civic Leadership. It will show how much you have actually completed of the passport. And then once you actually click on view passport, you can look at it in greater detail. It will outline each of the 10 degrees and what are the specific actions that need to be completed to earn that degree. The cool thing is you can actually bounce around. And what do I mean by that? I mean, we could say, for example, I could say, well, I'm earning my first degree right now. I have attended 50% of the chapter's meetings while I'm doing this first degree. But you know what? I also went to the JCIUSA.org website and I explored the different tools that were available to me. I can check this underneath the second degree. However, I need to complete every single checkbox in the first degree before I advance essentially to the second degree. So you can bounce around, but essentially your degree level, if you will stay at the degree that essentially you're working to fill out in total. If there are additional questions, I would recommend within your chapter directing them to the individual board of directors or the chapter president or the state membership team. They have a ton of knowledge and are happy to explain why the different degrees are there, answer any questions or approval questions that you may have. Without further ado, let's hand it over to Jamie. She's going to jump into the PMG.
Thank you so much for having me. As was mentioned before, I'm Jamie Hekker. I am actually a past president of this chapter and also very proud to be a 10th degree JC. So I have gone through and checked all the boxes and earned all the fancy merit badges. And I think it's a really cool way to get yourself involved in the JC. So that's just my little plug for doing the Passport to Leadership program. So with moving on, let's talk about project management guides and actually running a well thought out, well planned project and a simple tool to help you do that. So PMG, project management guide, why should we use them? As you should have received a blank PMG, a sample PMG, as well as some other resources. And it's really a guide that can help you go through step by step the planning process. Take you from the start of what it is I want to do through the implementation and, evaluation of your project at the end. And it really helps you get from point A to point Z. It's adaptable. It can go from anything from, say, planning a training to planning a large-scale event. People have used these not just with their JC's projects, but with planning their weddings or starting a business. So it's really very useful for things in your life, in your work, as well as any kind of JC's project. It's asks general questions that are the kind of things you need to think about when you're doing any kind of project of scale. And the consistency is most important when you're running a project for the JCs. It provides information and knowledge and learning from year to year. As you probably have learned through the JCs because of the nature of the organization and how we're for young people. We have leadership changes and people come and go in our organization, but some of our projects stand the test of time. And if we have our PMGs done, they can serve as historical documents that can show people year over year what happened with our projects, how we actually got them done, how we pulled off this awesome thing, what we did, what we didn't do, what we do again. And so it can really be a great tool for people who are looking to run something again and replicate our success and avoid our pitfalls. So the PMG is primarily broken down into two parts, our planning and evaluation. And the planning is really what you need to do from the start. And one of the most important things to do is, if you have an idea for a project, is to work with your board, but also sketch out the beginning of the first 7 questions of this PMG project, and so that you can bring it to your board of directors and, you know, seek the funding that you need and seek the approval to actually get the process started. And so while it can look pretty daunting, it actually isn't as difficult as you think. And that's why we're walking you through this today using a sample of one of our very well-known projects. We're looking at the St. Patrick's Day Parade, which is a sample PMG you have. And one of the first things I learned way a long time when I was a baby JC about your primary purpose is that it doesn't have the word "and" in it. You have one primary purpose. Your project can do a lot of things and achieve a lot of aims and goals, but what is the one purpose that we're trying to achieve? And with the St. Patrick's Day Parade, with this PMG, we said that we were seeking to raise food donations for the local food pantry. So that's our primary purpose, and all the other things we do support that. So just as a reminder that we don't have a whole bunch of things in our primary purpose. Those are secondary goals. So in our project overview is basically what it sounds like, our description. What is it you're trying to do? You know, who, what, where, when, why. And also important, if you're trying to propose a project to the GCs and you want your chapter to support you with manpower and with money, how is this going to benefit your individual members? How is it going to benefit your chapter as a whole? And how is it going to benefit the community? And finally, it's really important to look at what your measurable goals are that you want to achieve. You know, how much non-perishable food do we want to collect for the food pantry? Looking at one of our other goals for the St. Patrick's Day Parade was to look at the changing the cost share that we had with the city of Muskegon to make sure the project was sustainable. So what was our investment going to be, the number of parade entries, as well as the number of people that participated, as in spectators. So those are some measurable things. It's wonderful to just, you know, have ideas of have fun or have people attend, but you don't know if you achieve it unless you actually set a target. And it's okay if you don't make your target, but you're never going to know how to improve if you don't actually set a hard target. So what I think is the most important, one of the most important pieces is this steps to implementation. And we have it written here in a Word document, but one of the other supporting things you got with this training was a really awesome spreadsheet that had this steps to implementation as a sheet on it, which is basically we need to list out all our tasks, all the things we have to do, the start date, finish date, fill it out as you go, as it's complete, who's responsible, priority, and then any kind of obstacles that we see there. I find this really helpful for a couple of reasons. One, it helps us kind of sketch out the timeline of what we need to do and really look at some things down the road with events like St. Patrick's Day Parade or Snowfest. You know, you need to have permits to close the streets. Well, we always seem to forget that the price of those goes up exponentially if you don't get them done 2 months in advance. So having that laid out in your tasks is really important. These task lists are also really important because you need to have people's names for who is responsible for this. Is the chair responsible? Do you have a communications person? If you look down and you find that the chair is the person who has most of the responsibility, or you don't have individuals' names, you can see that either you don't have enough people on your committee, or you don't have enough worker bees, or in any case, you can see where you need to divide some responsibility. And so that's really helpful to see. And it also just, like I said, gives you a good timeline and visual for where you are. And especially when you get to the end and look at, all right, we mobilized all these resources, we got all these things out there, how do we need to get everything back? So steps to implementation is super, super important. And I think that's kind of what a lot of us think about when it comes to planning, and that's a really nice guide to have. Our critical contacts, what this really is your core team. Our project manager, we also call this a project chair, your committee members, which generally include your supervising vice president or the president of the chapter, whoever the member of the board is who's taking responsibility. One of the cool things about St. Patrick's Day Parade is this is a collaborative effort, and so it includes people from community organizations like Visit Muskegon, our Visitors Bureau, as well as Hennessy's, the Irish Pub. And so who are the people that have the main roles, and what are their duties, so that we know that, as well as their contact information. Some of these people may not be part of the event in the next year, but we can at least see what role they played and figure out and contact them if we say, gosh, Shanna, you did so much last year, and what can you do to help us out? So another, our specific materials, supplies, resources, all the things that we need to make this work. That's another really cool tab on our spreadsheet resource that we gave you. And this, I think, is important to look at because it's not just things that we're buying. Yeah, we needed to buy candy to hand out at the parade, but we also need no parking signs, and we have to get those from the City of Muskegon Department of Public Works. Who's going to get them? The barricades, if we're going to sell parade apparel, we have to get that. So this includes the things that we own, that we use. It includes the things that we buy that are consumables, the things that we borrow. And it's also good because we include the cost of it and the value, whether we pay for it or we borrow it or we own it. It helps us to estimate what the cost of running this project is, because one of the important things of a PMG is looking at that. Say another chapter, South Kent JCs, wanted to put on a St. Patrick's Day parade, and they wanted to see what we did. Well, they may not already have Grand Marshal sashes, and they may not have, they may not be able to borrow the no parking signs or whatever. So what is the value of the things that we already had to us, because people want to see out of the box, what does it really cost to put on this project if you don't have all these resources available to you? So leading into that is why one of the trickier parts of this is the budget. And so if you're writing your first PMG, feel free to, I would really suggest as you take a stab at it to connect with your supervising vice president or the president or another member of the board who's willing to help you and kind of nurture you through the process a little bit, because the chapter may give you some startup money, which is what your appropriation is, but we do put the value of the donated items. So whether you have Hennessy's donating money for the permit, or if they're giving items, we're borrowing barricades, so that's a donated item. Even if we give it back, we want to put all of those things, because those are income, even if it's not cash that we're keeping, and because those are also expenses. So as with any budget, our income and expenses need to equal out at the end, because if we plan to make a profit, say we thought we might make $50 on t-shirts or something, that's just money that's just profit that comes back to the chapter. So that can be a little tricky, and so I encourage new project managers to work with experienced project managers to develop their budget. And it's just important to get your hands dirty, and you gotta write a couple of these before you get comfortable, and that's okay. And finally, a really good exercise to think through is your potential problems and solutions. The regular PMG form just has 3, think of potential problems and what could happen. But if you're doing a new project, a first-year project, it really pays to think about what are the things that could happen that are unexpected and throw something off. And so let's think through that and how we can hopefully mitigate that ahead of time. So I think that's really helpful. And then should something arise, at least you've been kind of forewarned about that. And I think those of us on this conference call have already experienced that a little bit and worked on our, problems and solutions. So that is it. It sounds kind of daunting to have to put together a PMG before you take a project to the board and to the president and say, hey, I want to run this. It seems more fun to have, I have a great idea, let's go do an event. Yeah, it's fun, but projects are actually a lot more fun when they go off as planned. So 7 questions, won't take you very long to start drafting it. And then you have a fabulous project. And then what? So once we run our project, then we're going to...
I just had to capitalize on that, Jamie.
Yes, ma'am.
So what we say in project management, like in the field, is that for every minute of planning, you save 5 in execution. I feel like this is your one. If for every 1 minute you spend planning here, you're going to save 5 executing on it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially because I've been part of projects that have had no PMGs, and it shows. You can run some really good things, especially if you're part of it. You can see that, it's just a really good idea with people working really hard, and it goes off really well because people are working really, really hard at the last minute, and it didn't have to be. And we've all done that in our work and in our life. And it's really hard, especially if we think we know what we're doing, and it's something we've all worked on. But I would encourage people to do some of the planning ahead of time, and even just you're presenting your project to the board, do some of these things ahead of time, and that will go a lot better and you'll know the answers when people ask you what it is you plan to do and how it is you plan to do it.
Right.
So
good point.
That's that'll help you feel prepared, and it's always better to feel prepared. So we run our awesome projects. Some things went as planned, some things didn't. Luckily, we thought about things and we were able to solve any potential problems, and something else always came up, but that's how the world works. So afterwards, we don't want to just rest on our laurels too much, or say the whole thing didn't go well, just throw it away and wash our hands of it. It's really important to finish the process and evaluate and wrap everything up. So you need to look back, list the solution, look at recommendations and solutions to any problems for the next person. There are things that pop up, and you want to make sure that you kind of give a warning to people that come ahead. And I will tell you that the main number one thing that comes up with every PMG, every JC's project, every project I've worked on for work is more time. We need to start this earlier. We need to start this earlier. So that will always be in there, and at some point we may start earlier, but maybe perhaps if that's your learning, then what is the date that this needs to be started? Not just earlier, start by July 1 or et cetera. So, and then our results. Look back and honestly look at your results. So you restate your primary purpose and give your results. Our primary purpose was to raise food for the Catholic Charities Food Pantry. We did. How much? What were our goals? And look at our specific targeted goals. And in this case, this is really important that what were the exact goals we stated, and then what were our results. It might be tempting to look at some other things we achieved and put those as our goals, but what's important here in number 9 is to restate the goals we set from above and report on those. Our project summary then is one of the things, this is kind of where you can sell it and say your wow statement. Like, our goal wasn't to XYZ, but we knocked this out of the park, and so in future years, we're really gonna look at, we had 7 fire trucks and police cars and blah, blah, blah. And so we're gonna take it to the limit and, see how we can improve that next year or whatever it is. So that's a opportunity to sell it, to show that what really happened and why it was a great event. I would encourage you if your project doesn't go well, not to just let this fall by the wayside. Sometimes when things don't go well, people just kind of want to walk away from it. And I think there's more to be learned from wrapping up a project that goes poorly than from one that goes really well and everyone can tell you what happened in it. So then we need to, kind of recap our benefit to the members, chapter, and community. Remember at the top we said what we thought it might be. What actually was it? Did our members learn project planning? Did our members make valuable connections? Did our chapter gain new members? Did our community get more capacity for food? I don't know. We thought we knew what the benefit was going to be. What did it actually turn out to be? And finally, the last piece, and this is where this really depends on what kind of planner, manager, data person you are. You can really go nuts. The appendices, you can attach all your, you complete your final budget. You had a draft budget up top, and so then you reconcile all your financials. Make sure you have all your contacts. You had all the people, your key team above, but you may have contacts of people like media and people with the city or other people that you need to have as key contacts. Pictures, any of those kind of things, as well as contracts and agreements. Those are really helpful. If your event includes any kind of gambling, alcohol, copies of your liquor license and your raffle license are really helpful for people who are filling those out in the future, especially if they're new. And then any kind of press, your press release, your article write-ups in the newspaper, links to radio interviews, TV interviews, things like that. So that is where you can kind of gather all of those things. So that is what a PMG is. And then we can talk a little bit about what the resources are. So JCI Michigan, so our state parent organization, has a document library that has the blank PMG template. It also has the blank spreadsheet that I was speaking about, and it has some links to other PMGs that have been done by other local organizations in Michigan who are interested in sharing. This is our project management template that we have. As you can see, I was talking through the one that we have filled out, but this is the blank one. So, and there we go, our sample. And so everything that we do, all these finalized documents, the JCI Greater Muskegon Board maintains a Google Drive and keeps all of those in there. So if you have PMGs you want to have access to, more recent years, they will have those. We are also working on having a similar Google Drive available to our members on our website, similar to what JCI Michigan has, so that members can see that without having to navigate through board members, and we have a little more ease of use there. So look forward to that in the future, hopefully, but there are a lot of resources to you, and any of your board members can help you out getting access to previous PMGs if you're interested. We've had some interesting discussion about, going back to old projects and seeing, hey, if somebody wrote a good PMG, can we actually recreate a project from there and actually do what we say we could do? So there are a lot of good uses for this tool, and I would highly suggest people use it. It is not particularly proprietary, so please feel free to use it in your work and in your life. And yeah, I also will say that I personally am willing to sit down with any member who has a project idea and is interested in, spending a half hour, an hour working through the PMG process, because I know it can be a little daunting when you first look at it. And so if somebody wants to have a call or coffee or something like that, I'm happy to help work on that with you and prep you before you go to the board of directors with your project idea.
Incredibly helpful. And make sure that if you guys have any questions, give us a shout. We'll be happy to help.
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
All right, so I think that I will put a link to the survey so that it's easy to be accessed. So the survey will just have a few questions in it that's going to give us some feedback on the presentation and let us know that you engaged in the presentation. It's really important for us to know that you are watching these types of presentations and engaging in them, and so that we can keep track of who's doing what and who's interested in what. But it's just a quick little survey, and I hope that I see a lot of people filling it out.